Everyone, my name is Rosalind Douglas, and I am the founder of Central Health-Grenada. The purpose of Central Health-Grenada is to educate nationals about chronic non-communicable diseases. However, we are in the height of COVID-19 in Grenada, and I felt it important to speak to someone who has cared for a person who was diagnosed with COVID-19 and survived. So with me today, I have Mrs. Helen Batson. She's a Grenadian that's living in the United States, specifically Virginia. And welcome, Mrs. Batson. Thank you so much for giving your time up today to speak with us. I wanted to know if you can walk us through what happened when your spouse was diagnosed with COVID-19.
Last year around April, my husband is a health care provider, and when he came home, one of his bosses called him and told him to go into quarantine because he attended to one of his patients that was positive for COVID. And this was very new to us, so we didn't really know what to do. So I told him, we have 3 rooms in the house. So I told him to go into one of the rooms and, and stay there. So I did feel him and see, if his body was hot. And there was a little bit of heat coming there. I grabbed the thermometer and checked his temperature. The temperature at that time was 99 going to 100. But you know what? I'm a strong person, and I thank God I wasn't really scared or anything. So I kept giving him fluid during that night, and he stayed in the room, and then keep checking on him. And that time the temperature kept going up.
So his temperature kept going up rapidly?
Yeah, for that particular night, yes. So from 99, 100, 101. And then, so he stayed there. But then when I realized he was a little bit bored because that room didn't have a TV. And I said, you know what, you come back to our room, which is our master bedroom. And I said, I'll come back to our bedroom and I'll move. But I didn't want to move back into the room that he was in, because he already, was in that room and he could have, infected that room. So
sure.
Let him come back into our room. And then I came downstairs to one of the living rooms. One of his coworkers called and talked to him and said, you need to get tested. You need to get tested. It was Friday into Saturday. And they tell him, you need to get tested. His work called and said, you need to go get tested. And I was like, why would you go get tested? It doesn't make any sense. You don't have COVID. But the fever kept going up. So Saturday morning, I looked at him, and one of the things they told you to look for too is a fever. Make sure you look at the lips to see if the lips are turning purple or blue or whatsoever. So that is something to look, to get help for. So I said, you know what? I think we should go get tested. So he didn't want to go. He was reluctant. I said, we need to go get tested. So he got dressed, put his mask on. I put my mask on and drove him to one of the clinics, which wasn't too far away, to get tested. And
this was how many months ago? This was what month?
Last April.
Last April. Okay, very good.
April 2020.
April 2020. All right.
Right. Okay, so we did go up to the clinic and they tested him and came back. We came back, he kept giving him fluids and hot fluids to drink in the meantime, taking his temperature. At that time, the temperature in the daytime, the temperature will go up to like 101, 102, 103. And then in the night, sometimes it will go up as well, and then come back down early in the morning and go up again. So anyway, while we await the results from the clinic, I kept giving him hot drinks. I would make ginger, garlic, clove. I'll sweeten it with honey and squeeze a lemon in there. So that was one of the teas I will make for him. For the fever now, I had lemongrass and orange peel from Grenada. So I will mix that up, lemongrass, orange peel, and sweeten it with honey. And I'll give him that at night. And then during the day, I would also give him a lot of hot soup, because one of the things the doctor told us, we called our doctor, and the doctor said, don't give him any heavy food to eat, because you don't want any heavy food to get into the lungs, just pure liquid. So plain soups and lots of hot tea. So that's what I would make. I'll make chicken soup every day for him, and I'll give him the hot tea. I even made some light smoothies with kale and spinach, and give him that to drink during the day. But he had there were days when he didn't feel like eating anything or drinking anything. He just wanted to sleep and stay in bed.
Because that was my question. During this time, I know that it was important to keep him hydrated as he had this ongoing fever. But
Right.
my question was, did he have an appetite, or was he just being really obedient to what you were doing?
Right. He didn't have any appetite at all. He just didn't want to eat, but I had to force him to eat. I had to force him to eat. It's just like a cold. If you have a cold, you wouldn't have no appetite at all. So I would force him to eat. So I'm gonna go back a little bit. So that was Saturday when he got the test. So Sunday, all day Sunday, I gave him the hot drink and the soups and things like that to eat, to drink. No food, because the heavy food will sort of like, you don't want the heavy food to get onto your lungs. That's what the doctors told us. So just give him just the soups and the hot drinks. And then I will make a pot. I will put a pot on the fire with water to boil. And then in that Sunday night, I make him cover his head and inhale that steam. So that steam will go into his nostril. And then I would also, that morning, in the morning when he gets up and the night before he goes to bed, I'll make him gargle, because you know, COVID starts in your nostril. It starts in your nostril, gets down to your throat, and then lodge itself in the lungs. And when it gets to the lungs, that's the bad part. That's where the people get they can't breathe and things like that, you know? So I will make him gargle every night and every morning, and then steam that, inhale that steam every night before he goes to bed. So Sunday, that happened Sunday. Monday, when we got up, the clinic called back stating that he was positive. So then now we knew exactly what to do after that. Then the fever kept going up, 104, 105, 106. And then I worked from home, so it was very hard for me getting up in the morning, having to get the breakfast ready for him. And then my daughter was here from college as well. And then I had to take care of her, because the Ministry of Health also called me and asking me what are my symptoms. And then I told them I had a headache 3 days before that. And guess what? They told me I had to quarantine as well. And my daughter had the same issue. She had some slight headaches and they told her to quarantine. So I told the Ministry of Health, well, sir, how can I quarantine when we have to eat? So I know if you have symptoms, you're not supposed to be going out there, because you can spread the, to other people. But I told nobody will bring food for us. So I have to go there and get the food. So I would get up early in the morning. The groceries over here open at 7. So I would get up early before the groceries open and get out there, get what I have to get early, 7:30, and I'll get back home and do what I have to do for my family and myself. So that was the Sunday. The Monday, after we got the news, I kept giving him the hot drinks and the hot soup. And then in the evening time, I would see he would just be logging in the bed there. He doesn't want to get up. When I go back to check on him, he will tell me, oh, he doesn't want to eat. No, the Ministry of Health told me to put the food in front of the door for him and don't go into the room. And I said, no, I cannot do that. My husband is not an animal. I have to go in the room and feed him. So I make sure I went into the room to look at him.
When you went in, you were wearing your mask, I assume?
Yeah, so I was well protected. With the help of the Lord, I was well protected. So I had my mask, I had a gong. My children had their graduation gongs in one of the closets. So I took one of the graduation gongs and put that on me. And then I had my mask, and then I had gloves. I had about 5 or 6 boxes of gloves. So every time I go in with 2 pairs of gloves, when I come out, I take them off, throw them in the garbage, wash my hands. Every time I go in, I have my gloves, take them off and put on a new pair and go back in there. I had my face mask on. So I was well protected. So I went in there every time with the food, morning, lunch and dinner. And then there was a time when I morning, like around 2 o'clock in the morning, one of the days, I think it was Tuesday, his fever was outrageous. And then the spirit woke me up 2 o'clock in the morning and told me to check on him, to check on his breathing, because the doctor told me, you know, exactly what to look for, to make sure you look to see if he's not breathing properly. That's when we need to go to the hospital. So I went up there that morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and he wasn't breathing. I said, well, how was the night? He said, not too good, because I'm having difficulty breathing. So I said,
So
well,
what did you observe at that moment? What was his breathing labored? Was it seem like he was gasping for air? It was difficult to speak. What did you observe at that time?
Well, yeah, he wasn't gasping for air, and he wasn't not difficult to speak, but the breathing was different to how he normally breathes. It was like a short breathing, like things like that, you know? But then I remembered one of my friends from New York had sent me a video, and they called me as well, and they told me what to do when if you have shortness of breath. And I looked at the video again, and I was like, I said, let me try. I'm going to try this in Jesus' name. So it was a poultice. You have to make a poultice with onion. So what I did, I ran downstairs and I made the poultice, got one onion. It could be a small onion or a big onion, and you cut it up in small pieces. And then you tie that in a head tie or a handkerchief. And then you put it on, I went back upstairs and told him to lie on his stomach, and I put it on his chest. And I told him to lie there for at least, he's supposed to be lying there for at least 8 hours with it on his chest, but you know, he didn't want to do that. So I said, try, just do it for 1 hour. And then I'll cut up some more of the onions and put it in his socks for him. So with that, the poultice now was on his chest, and he'd lie there. And then I would say, well, let's go to the hospital. He said, no, I'm not going, because the hospital at the time, it was full with COVID patients, and they were not attending to the COVID patients based on what we heard. You will get into the hospital and they will just look at you, and they'll leave you in the entrance there. They may give you a small apparatus in your hand, I think it's something to help with the breathing or whatever, and leave you right in the hallway there and not attend to you. And the next thing.
This is in the United States, that it just became so inundated with people at that time, because that was at the peak.
Right.
The first round.
Yes, and people would just be dying right there. So he's a nurse, so he knows, and he said, no, I don't want to go to the hospital. So I said, okay, well, we'll try the poultice. And I gave him the poultice, and when I went back in there, he was laying down, and the breathing was a little bit much better than when I saw him that morning at 2 in the morning. Then I went back up at 7 to give him his breakfast, you know, the usual, the tea. And then in the morning I would make a little hot, we say porridge in the Caribbean, a little hot oatmeal, and give him that to drink. And that time he didn't have any strength to eat, and he will get up and he will lie on the tip of the bed with his head like this. And I will say, okay, try and see if you could get something to eat. And I will come back, start my walk, you know, get onto my computer and start my walk. But during my walk, I was like, let me run back up there and see how he's doing. When I go back there, how I made the breakfast, it was right there. So, and I was like, no, you got to eat something. You got to eat something. And I forced him to eat, because one of the things, again, the doctor said that the COVID likes is like, if you don't eat, that it will take control of your strength. You have to make sure you eat. You have to force yourself to eat. And then we had another
primarily liquids you were giving him, because that porridge was another example. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then there was another technique that I've learned too, to start tapping his back. So I start tapping his back to break up all the mucus that is in the lungs. And by doing that, he was able to bring up the phlegm.
So describe that tapping motion that you were doing, that you felt that you observed that when you were tapping him, it helped to bring up the mucus. So did you start from the lower part of his back and move up, or how did you do that? Just describe.
From the top, you know where the lungs are located at the back, right? So
Yes.
right there, you're gonna go in this motion. Tap, 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 tap. You'll do that for like 4 times. So if you want to do it 3 times a day, you could do it 3 times a day. So I did it 3 times a day. I would
Okay.
tap his back, 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 tap his
And
back.
after you tapped on his back, how soon did you notice he started bringing up phlegm?
Maybe maybe half an hour, the phlegm.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, one morning I was in the room with him and he started coughing. So as soon as he started coughing, I would draw back because, you know, the cough can extend, and I would draw back and then I would look, and then he would show me the color of the phlegm in the sink. It was rather brown, like the dirt on
It was
the,
brown.
yeah,
Okay.
really, really brown. And then, so he did that for a couple of times, and I, you know, kept tapping. And then the fever was outrageous, really outrageous. By that time, the fever would go up to like 105, 106. And then, so I started giving him, started making little, I grew up in the country from Pomeroy. That's where I grew up. My grandaunt, whenever you had a fever back there, she would use the nutmeg, the soft candle, and the Vicks, and put it on the fire to sort of like barely lukewarm it, and that you would rub your whole body down with that to take away whatever cold you have in you. So I did that in the nighttime for him, rub his whole body with that, and make him cover with the sheet or a blanket, and he will sweat out everything that was there. But even though so the fever was so outrageous, that didn't help. So I remember another technique when I was living in New York. When you have a fever, the best thing for a fever is to take a cold shower or a cold bath. And no, he didn't want to take a cold bath. He did it for a couple of times. I filled the tub, and he would sit there and he was like, no, I don't want to do that. It was very uncomfortable for him. So I told him, okay, to just strip himself. And then I told him I will do a sponge bath. Let's do a sponge bath. So I did put some rubbing alcohol. And that time, rubbing alcohol, you couldn't find rubbing alcohol anywhere because the COVID was up there. So everybody bought out the rubbing alcohol, and I didn't have any in the house. But eventually, God was so good on my side. I went out one early morning and I got a bottle from a guy from the hair place, and the price was so outrageous. I said, whatever it is, $20, $40, I'll take it. So I got the rubbing alcohol, came back, and I did fill the tub, put a little bit in the water, and then I gave him a sponge bath from head to toe, and I sponge bathed him, and then I dried him and stuff like that. That time he was just like, he was helpless. And then I had a bottle of Alcolado. Somebody sent it for me, I think from New York. I think it was his sister sent me a bottle of Alcolado. Well, the lime alcohol first, but the lime alcohol was too hot. So I got the bottle of Alcolado after he took the sponge bath, and then I rubbed his head from the head with it, and I rubbed his whole body with that Alcolado and his feet, and then he put the socks on, and then the next day, guess what happened? The fever broke.
Wow.
Praise the Lord. So we called the doctor, and the doctor said, thank God the fever broke. And that once the fever breaks, you know that you're on your way to recovery. So we kept watching that. The fever broke, and little by little, his appetite kept coming back. And then he had to get, I think take like 3 negative tests before they could deem him COVID free.
Clear.
Yeah, clear him off. Yeah, so he took the first one, I think it was 99, and then it went down to 98, and then it went down to 97, and then it went down to the regular, which was 96. So for 3 days, he had to stay home to do that. But it was a lot of work. You had to do so many different things to see which one will break. Now, everybody has different symptoms. His symptoms was the fever and the cough. Some other person may just have, as you said, asymptomatic, may not have anything at all. And some other people may have headaches and maybe body aches. So, some other people may just have light symptoms, but his symptoms was the fever, which is the bad part, and the coughing. So
The
yeah,
coughing. So
yeah.
from the time when he got that message that he was due to work, he was exposed to someone who was positive, and then from that time when he started to not feel well, that fever kicking in, how many days did you give all that loving, tender care to your husband? How many days would you say that took, that he was not feeling well at all?
I would say it was about the whole week. I think that was the Wednesday, the Thursday, the Friday, the Saturday, the Sunday, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's about almost about 6, 7 days. Yeah, because when we got the news that he was positive, which was a Saturday, so we went Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of the next week. That's when the fever started breaking. So around 7 to 8 days. Yeah, it was a lot of work.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you would go on your computer and juggle between work and him. So luckily you were working at home. But how about you and your daughter? How did you fare during that time?
Well, I feel a little stressed out because I had to get up in the morning, and I didn't get. Oh, my husband said it was 2 weeks. He was in there for 2 weeks. Yeah, well, in the morning I didn't get no sleep at nighttime, so I would come down here. I made myself a bed in my other living room here. I just couldn't sleep because he's up there, and I'm wondering about him, and I will go up the steps singing and praising God. And one of the things I know, I always used to go when I'm going up the stairs, I would say, Satan, you're a liar. You're not going to take us, not now and not from this, and I will repeat that going up the step, not now and not from this. And then the song that was played this morning, that was one of the songs that came to my mind, Miracle Worker, Promise Keeper, Light in the Darkness. So that was my song going up the step every morning. But to me, I felt a duty to as a wife. I took an oath until death do us part, or for sickness and in health, for better or for worse. That stick with me as a wife. And I know I couldn't leave my husband up there, just lying in the bed and knowing that COVID, it was a sickness, a disease, as they call it, and you could die from it. And he didn't want to go to the hospital. I have to take care of my husband. And I didn't want to be to sit here and just lie here and just put the food in front of the door and for him and turn away. No, I think, he deserved better than that. So I said I would take care of my husband, careless what. I wasn't afraid of catching COVID, most of the doctor and the nurses, everybody said most likely I must have gotten a touch of it too because of the headaches that I had. My daughter as well. And my daughter didn't want to stay in her room. She was like, no, I'm coming out too. So she came outside. Both of us will sit on the table. And another thing is that they told us, don't give him the food that we give him. We have to give him in a different dish, in the different dishes that you feed him with. Don't put it together with your dish because you could contaminate that the
Sure.
person.
So he had his own cups, spoons,
Yeah,
cutlery, crockery,
yeah,
everything, and that you would wash separately from yours and your
right.
daughter.
Yes. I use everything. I had his cup, his plate, his spoon, his fork, and everything like that. So the same thing goes up in the morning. It comes down, we wash it up. But I have the sink that I have has 2 sections. So I would put his set in one section and our set in the other section. There was a time I think I must have mixed up certain things in ours, but to God be the glory. To God be the glory. And then I would make sure I have a tray and put everything on the tray for him and make sure everything was separated and bring it up for him every morning. So that was another thing you have to be careful that you don't mix the same dishes with your dishes because you don't want to contaminate your dish with his dishes, and the other cups with your cup, his cup with our cups. But it was rough. It was I was, as I said, I wasn't scared. I went in there with the help of God and trusting the Lord that all will be well. I know there was a time with lack of sleep. I must have told myself maybe I'll maybe coming down with it as well, with the way I was drained out. But at the same time, I was taking care of myself. I was eating what I had to eat. And then I take a lot of vitamins, you know, the vitamin D, which is very important. Vitamin C, your vitamin zinc, but your zinc, of course. And you know, the oatmeal has a lot of zinc in it. Your okra has a lot of zinc in it. So I use everything that I have here in the house to make little things to, you know, so all of us would eat and take care of ourselves. And then I think coming down to the end, there was a time when he was just wanting to lie down there. And I said, no, you're not going to lie down because COVID wants you to lie down. You're not going to lie down. Get up from the bed. And my daughter and myself would get up in the hallway with him. And he would be in the room and both of us in the hallway and say, come on, let's do some exercises. So we'll do some hand movements and stuff like that. And then another technique that I helped him with to make sure for the lungs part, I would make him stand up next to the wall and take deep breaths to help his lungs. I was a police officer, so they taught us how to, exercise the lungs. And I would tell him, come on, let's exercise the lungs. So I would make him take like 3 or 4 deep breaths every evening. Deep in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in and breathe out to help his lungs. And then I will tell him, come down the steps. I don't want him just staying, lying on the bed. Come out, start to walk about with his mask on his face, as of course. So he will come down the steps and go up the steps, but one by one, because every time he goes up the step, he feels like he was out of breath. Come on, go up the step, come down the steps, and give him little exercises. And then maybe the last couple of days, then he came and allow him to come downstairs and move about, go outside and take some fresh air and stuff like that, Yeah, so I was a wife, a mother at the same time, and I was a nurse at the same time.
Well, he who finds a wife finds a good thing, and you definitely went all out. You said not today. So I really wanted to thank you for sharing your journey with us. In Grenada at this time in September of 2021, we're seeing a spike in cases. And one of the things that happens is that you get tested and you're positive. You need to go home and self-isolate, self-quarantine. And the question remains, now what do I do? So based on you being a Grenadian, you see that you brought out you threw everything and the kitchen sink at him to make sure that he was well, from all the different remedies that you had, and from the exercise to the breathing, to the sponge bath, to the nutmeg, to the different teas, to the onions. I just felt it was important to hear from someone who went through that journey and made it through. So he's well now and back to work, right?
Yes, amen. Yeah, because that was since last year, April. Though before him to go back out to work, he had to get the 3 tests.
3 negative tests.
Negative tests. And then after that, after the 3 negative tests, when he got to work again, they will test him. Even now, even though we are all vaccinated now, thank God. But even now even though he's vaccinated, they still test him, like every other week or every week, they still test him on the boat jobs to make sure that he's, negative.
Was he vaccinated after his illness or before?
No. He got the COVID in April of 2020, and then he got the vaccination this year. He was vaccinated in January of this year.
Okay.
And he took the Pfizer. But one of the things that he still struggles with the I think it's an after effect though, the shortness of the breath. He's still having problems, like if he goes upstairs, a flight of stairs, it's sort of like, you can see he's still have that shortness. Yeah, so that's the side effect of it, But as the doctor said, it wouldn't go away all at one time, but he will still have to keep exercising that lungs. Eventually, it will.
I'm sure what you shared with us today would be encouraging to a Grenadian. And as a Grenadian living in the United States, in Virginia, former police officer, you went all out to take care of your husband, and we certainly appreciate you sharing your journey with us. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you so much. Well appreciated. And God is good. He's going to keep you guys. We're praying for you. Thank you, Sister Rosin, for having me.
My pleasure. This is Rosin Douglas with Central Health Grenada.